Hello and welcome back. My name is Josh, and today I wanted to touch on another Reg A Plus company. So if you don't know what that is, you can click here to get the full breakdown. But basically, these are companies that are looking to raise money from the public. So they're not going public via an IPO, but they're still privately held companies, but you can invest in these privately held companies. So it's like crowdfunding for businesses. And I've looked at a couple before. I've looked at um, Miso Robotics, which you can see there, and I looked at another one called Flower Turbine. And typically, these smaller companies are the reason why they're raising money from the crowd and from the public is because they're in a very niche industry, so they can really sell a story. So again, with Miso Robotics, hey, the future of kitchens is automated. And with Flower Turbines, it's hey, we're looking for a greener future. Here's a new way to generate electricity. So this one is called EI Ventures or Emotional Intelligence Ventures. And what they are trying to hit on their market is they're trying to ride the wave of public health. In the last couple of years, obviously, we've had, I would say, a public health crisis. The rates of depression are up. You can see some stats here. 322 million people suffer from depression, 300 million from PTSD, 164 million from substance abuse. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from mental illness. I'm a Canadian, and we have one of our big telecoms, Bell, always does this. Um, Bell Let's Talk. It's like trying to remove the stigma of talking about mental health. And I do think that there's been a huge outpouring of people who now understand that other people suffer from mental health, and this has been a very big trend. I would lump it in with wellness. Obviously, wellness has been going on for a while. Apps like Calm that try to get you to meditate, physical fitness, but mental wellness is kind of the new frontier. And so we're seeing a lot of things go towards this. It's actually very interesting that they say they try and hit on opioids as well, because obviously that's a very timely subject in the US as there's a huge opioid epidemic. I'll just go over a couple more of these. 493, that's the increase in the diagnosis I was gonna say in the last 6 years. Well, this was over a bit ago. And this is the estimated cost of depression to the global economy, 1 trillion. That could be like lost wages by people not showing up, hurting themselves and others, damaging, um, making bad decisions. So obviously they're trying to say this is a massive market. So what does EI Ventures do? Well, they try to offer psilocybin medicine. Psilocybin medicine is medicine derived from psilocybin mushrooms or magic mushrooms, as they're more commonly known. Maybe some of our viewers have done magic mushrooms before. Full disclosure, I have. They're fun, and they there is an element to mental clarity. I thought well on it, but I did not have any long-term impacts, both positive or negative. Um, but I have heard some other people say they did some and had, changed their worldview. And I know a friend who is kind of, he did some and then he really kind of turned his life around afterwards. So this is, um, again, that's anecdotal evidence, not saying that's the case for everyone. And again, this is why you do science. These are medical trials. I think a lot of people are probably going to invest in this because they said, hey, I did magic mushrooms and they were fun. Let's do it. Um, but again, this is why I'm trying to help dig one level deeper and say, hey, what is it? What are we actually investing in? Because again, you can sell a good story to raise money, but at the end of the day, you're still investing in a business and you want that business to do well. So again, there is some um, evidence to show that some currently illegal drugs have some benefits medicinally. So obviously, here in Canada, cannabis is legalized. In the States, some states have legalized it, and there are lots of trials underway to show that cannabis actually does have some positive effects, especially in certain circumstances, and it's not as harmful in other ways as possible. Again, I'm not promoting these substances. Um, Again, full disclosure, I've done weed, and I don't see anything wrong with it if you're an adult and you want to make that choice. But I also think that we shouldn't be saying they're still drugs, if that makes any sense. Like, I drink wine and beer, but I wouldn't try to encourage people to do them all the time. And again, these are still companies trying to sell you drugs. So I'm trying to be both open-minded and also understand that at the end of the day, these people are trying to sell something that can be make you feel really good, and that can sometimes be a bit addictive. So just be aware of that. So obviously, the cannabis industry has had massive growth in the last couple of years. I will show you just as one. I did invest in the cannabis industry. That's actually how I kind of got my start investing. One off is I started investing in cannabis stocks just before legalization in Canada, and boy, did they rip higher. Let me see, weed stock. So here in Canada, there is a company, Canopy. If we look at the growth of this, look at this. It's been around for a while, but obviously, I think it was originally just for medicinal purposes. This is very important. So it was medicinal purposes. There was some hype because there's some legalization, then back down. Obviously, some up and down. And then here's where we get the real run up, 200% run up, saying, oh, look, we're going to legalize it. Then this is right up until it actually got legalized, 3,800% increase. And obviously, as you can see, from legalization all the way down, we're down 82%. And that's because at the end of the day, and I'm getting a little off topic on the cannabis industry, but at the end of the day, they are growing a plant, a crop, right? Just like you're growing wheat. Does anyone know wheat, not weed, wheat or corn? Does anyone know the biggest producer of corn or wheat in the country? No, no one does. It's the people who process it and turn it into something else that typically make the real money. So if you take corn, turn it into corn syrup, and then turn it into Coca-Cola and slap a brand on it, then you can sell it for a lot of money. But the people who grow the corn don't really make that much money. So that to me is how I see a lot of the cannabis industry is I rode the hype up, but I believe the industry itself is going to grow significantly. But I think most of the money is not going to be on the growers. It's going to be on the people that can brand it and sell it as a product similar to, let's just even take alcohol, vodka is made from potatoes. Um, Gin is made from juniper berries. People don't know who the juniper berry growers are. No, but they know the people that make the actual brands that are really popular, which is why in cannabis, um, Constellation Brands, which is the company, Constellation Brands, you'll know lots of their brands. They do a bunch of alcohol brands, um, Corona, Modelo Especial, Pacifico, Svedka Vodka. I don't know this one, Casa Noble Tequila, High West Whiskey. Anyway, they do a bunch of brands in alcohol, and they also did cannabis. As you can see, they invested in Canopy Growth. And I thought that made a lot of sense, and that's actually why I was a big investor in cannabis, Canopy Growth, is because I thought, again, the thing that differentiates you long term is being able to turn it into a marketable product. Now let's bring this back to magic mushrooms and emotional intelligence. So again, to me, we are currently in the stage all the way back here. Currently, we're at the hype. We're pre-legalization, but there's a little bit of hype around legalization for medical purposes only. And if you think this industry is going to grow similar to the cannabis industry, this could be a huge industry. And I personally do think that. I think that there's going to be I do think that as society progresses, we're going to see that we are going to be more okay with drugs. I know that I think that cannabis was a huge turning point for most people that they said, you know what, let's do research, let's see. And turns out that it's actually not as bad as we thought for people. And who is typically trying to rally against cannabis is actually typically the alcohol industry because they said, hey, we want to sell you guys drugs that you're dependent on. We want you to drink our beer and our rum and cokes, not use some other drug to make you feel good. And so it was actually a lot of the alcohol industry that was rallying against it. And I think that we're going to see more on the research side to show its benefits for medical purposes. And again, this is the first stage. Stage one showed medical benefit. Once we show that, then you have a right to do more research on it. And then you can say, hey, what are the true harms of it? And suddenly we say, you know what? There's actually not that many long-term harms of drug X, again, I'm just picking magic mushrooms in this case because this is the EI ventures, well, then maybe there's a pathway to legalization. And when that happens, you see a huge run up in um, people trying to like get into this boom, um, the booming cannabis industry, because it is going to be a massive market. And then you slowly, after it hits the peak in legalization, people realize, oh, you know what? This is kind of a commodity industry. We like this cannabis grower is the same as that cannabis grower. It's a crop, you know. And so, from the way I see it, I think we're going to see a similar thing play out in some other drugs, and specifically here, magic mushrooms. Again, it's got some benefits. One, it's natural, i.e., it's plant. Two, um, does have not a lot of history of substance abuse or negative things. So, you could say poppies are a plant and you can turn poppies into opium, but we've seen what opioids can do to people. So I think that has much less of a likelihood of becoming legalized en masse, while this has given people much more positive impacts and has much less harm. And three, there are real medical purposes. Again, opioids, they have a real medical purpose. They do help people in pain. The problem was that they then started overprescribing. Instead of, hey, you have a severe form of cancer and you're in a lot of pain, you need opioids. Now it was, hey, you stubbed your toe, here's some opioids. And we also made the opioids so much stronger. Instead of a natural form, we started diluting it and making it what's the fentanyl? Fentanyl is like 100 times stronger than oxycodone, codone, whatever it is. And that's the problem, is that we're not taking the natural version of it. We're really distilling it and making it very, very potent and strong. Yeah, they do that to increase the margins of the product. But again, for psilocybin right now, no one's been really like doing something like that. So, what is the Adventures? To recap, they create psilocybin medicine that is supposed to help people with their emotional intelligence. So if I look at my investing mindset, I say, one, do I understand the product? Somewhat. So I've done these mushrooms. I haven't had negative side effects, so I'm kind of relatively sure that it's safe. Um, I do not have mental health, but I've seen other people who do have mental health problems, and I do think there's actually, that's more of the second one, which is the market. The market for mental health products is huge, it's growing, and I've seen people in need of mental health solutions, and I think there's going to be a massive market for things that people are willing to try, especially more natural things. Again, I think probably the most natural one, people trying meditation and there's I'm sure some mental exercises, but something like this I'm sure would also have people excited to try. So growing market, product, I kind of understand, but not so much. Again, they are processing this into a pill. Let me see what they're called. I think it's called Silly. Where was it? Sorry, but no. There we go. Silly, yeah. Their flagship product, Silly, could become a game changer. Again, I also don't really love the writing. It's very salesy. Their flagship product, Silly, could become a potential game changer. But I get what they're going for. So, let's go through the product. So their flagship product is a whole plant-based botanical psilocybin formula. So again, it's psilocybin, it's the mushroom, and they've turned it into a pill. That way that you don't have to eat mushrooms. If you've ever done them, they taste disgusting. So, and I hate mushrooms personally, like that taste of them. So that's good. Reason two, their science team has 30 years of experience in bringing new drugs to the market. To me, this is not as strong a reason. Does that mean that they have 30 years collectively? That could mean that you have 30 people, each with 1 year of experience, which means nothing. And I doubt that they have every person on their team has worked 30 years. So does that mean just one person has 30 years and everyone else has maybe one or two? So again, I'm not loving the salesiness of this. Reason three, botanical, psychedelic API and drug formulations, which has the potential to create something called entourage effect. Researchers suggest the entourage effect could be key to psilocybin's healing properties. This is where Vince and E come in. No, I'm kidding. That's an entourage joke. That's not funny. That show is not aged well. If you've seen it, oh boy. Whew. Don't watch Entourage. I liked it when I was younger, and then I watched something recently, and I was like, This does not age well at all. Um, yeah, doesn't really seem like much of a reason, and their holistic approach creates multiple spokes of potential revenue. Um, could be. I don't know. To me, yes, the potential to help millions of people who struggle with mental illness. That should be higher up to me. That should be reason number two. Again, to me, if I'm trying to sell a product, one, massive market. Two, we have a product that could be a game changer. And then you do these ones that are more, they're not as intense. So far they've raised 19 million, which is 40% of the way there. So let's look a bit into their filing. So as always, with any of these Reg A plus investments, because they're private, you're going to see dilution. Even with startups today, you see dilution, but not at the same level. So, when Square, which I'm actually going to make a video on, which is changing their name to Block, but when Square purchased a firm, um, they saw dilution. So you can, whenever you buy something, you can buy it with cash or with stock. If you buy it with stock, you dilute. Now they saw 10, 20% dilution, which maybe you think is worth it because you think the combined company is going to grow faster. Um, but that's acquiring an existing company. This is just raising money. So, you can debt finance, so you can raise money with just debt, or you can raise money by selling equity. When you sell with equity, the existing shareholders get diluted. So you're always going to see dilution with something like this. However, I did go through it, and the dilution does not seem as intense as with the first one I looked at, which is Miso Robotics, which seemed to have extreme dilution. So here there is dilution, but so that is something to be aware of. But with any young startup, or not startup, but any younger company looking to grow quickly, you're going to see some dilution. So that is something to be aware of, but you're hoping that, hey, I get diluted 50%, but the company is 10x by now. So when we look at the risks, what are the risks? Well, this is the biggest one, as always. The company's at the early stages of their development. We do not expect to generate significant revenue for at least the next few years due to research. So again, you're investing in an idea at this point. When you're buying a company, most companies, especially companies that go public the traditional way, you're buying a business. Hey, here's how much money we make. Here's our growth avenues. Obviously, they can change and move things around, but for the most part, you're buying some revenue. You can project out some growth. Here, is a different kind of investing. This is much more similar to angel investing, where you're saying, what's the market and how much of that market can I capture if everything goes right? And then you put like an odds on that. So if you said, hey, this could be a $1 trillion market, I think we could capture 5% of that market. I think there's a 5% chance we could do it. That means you could think there's a 95% chance that this could go wrong, but you still go, but if it goes right, I 100x my money. And this is why I typically don't look at these sorts of investments, but I'm trying to go a little outside my comfort zone again. Typically, I've been a stock investor. So I say, hey, let's look at the value of Amazon. Is Amazon undervalued or overvalued? Here, you can't really judge if this company is undervalued or overvalued. You can really just say, am I getting a good deal for a risk? This is a risk. It's like going to the casino. Have you ever done sports book betting? Which I've done before. Sometimes you say, oh, this guy's the odds-on favorite to win, and I'm going to give you 1-to-1 odds. And you go, yeah, that's not that good. Meanwhile, someone else maybe, yes, they're a long shot to win, but they have 20-to-1 odds. And maybe you say, you know what, the long shot at 20-to-1 is a better payout than the favorite at 1-to-1. So that's how I look at it. This normal investing, I'm trying to find kind of the favorites who I think are more heavily favored than the odds, and most favorites don't have good odds, so you just ignore most of them. That's why I said there's thousands of stocks, and you can ignore most of them, and you should just focus on like the couple that are real winners. Um, Meanwhile, like I'll give you an example. What was the bet between? It was Jake. Was it Jake Paul? No, it was Conor McGregor and Conor McGregor versus who was it? I keep wanting to say Manny Pacquiao, but it wasn't. Floyd Mayweather. So that's one where my brother actually bet heavy on Floyd, who was the favorite. He said despite Floyd being the favorite and not having good odds, he thought they were still undervalued because it still said he was like a 60% chance to win if you looked at like what the odds of the betting was. And he's like, no, I think he's a 90% chance. Obviously, he did win. We can't know what the actual odds were, but I agreed with my brother that I think those were the odds were not heavily favoring the favorite enough, but typically favorites have bad odds. And meanwhile, one year in the sports back, I bet on, if you're a football fan, I bet on Shady McCoy, LaShawn McCoy. This is way back in the day to win the rushing title. I think it was 30 to 1 odds, and he won it that year. I got lucky. I've bet on long odds every year, and I think that's the one year I won it. But I've only been doing it for 8 years, maybe, so maybe it's 10 years. So I mean, I've still done well because that one payoff paid off more than all the years I've lost. But that's the point. You want to sometimes look at the long shots, and you know that most of them are going to fail, but the one that pays off will pay off huge. So this is how you should look at these smaller investments, whether it's a SPAC, which again, most of them are going to fail. But I think with SPACs, you don't have as much upside. Or these Reg A's, which I think same thing. Most of them are going to fail. Full disclosure. This has a high chance of not becoming a big success. But, and this is how you have to reshape your thinking. If it becomes a big success, it could be huge. And again, this is what I'm thinking with, again, if we look back at the weed stock, you know, people were investing in Canopy when no one thought there was any chance of legalization back in 2000, and if you held it the whole time, you did unbelievably well. Even today, it's up 12,000%, but if you sold at the peak, you got 67,000%. That's what I think is here. Could you get 67,000% on this? Yes. Is there maybe only a 5% chance or 1% chance on that? Yeah, probably. It's a very small percent chance, but you could get 100x upside if everything goes right. Now, again, full disclosure, I don't own anything. Don't own this yet. I am still doing my research. Um, but let's actually end it here. I'll do another video on EI Ventures, but I wanted to make this video just as an intro to it. So how I'm thinking about the psilocybin uh, market in general and where my head's at, and I'll make a part two diving a little deeper into what I think of the actual company a little more, and whether I actually make a decision to invest. So hopefully this is uh, interesting. Let me know. Do you think that psilocybin medicine is actually going to get legalized across the country, or do you think that this is just a pipe dream and we're not going to see it legalized? So because that is a major factor that's going to determine the success of um, this investment. So let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, give me a like and talk to you next time.